Wind-scoured plains stretch to a horizon that blurs into a bruised, endless sky. This is Patagonia, a land of extremes where glaciers carve through ancient mountains and the wind whispers secrets across the vast pampas. For centuries, these whispers have carried tales of giants, not mythical creatures of fantasy, but flesh and blood humans said to have dwarfed European explorers. Were they real, or just a product of exaggerated accounts and the fog of history? We sift through the explorers' logs, the archaeological evidence, and the indigenous oral traditions to uncover the truth behind the legends. What was it really like to be one of the towering inhabitants of this remote corner of the world? The answers lie buried in the Patagonian soil, waiting to be unearthed. Official history often ignores what it cannot explain. If you want to go beyond textbooks and analyze the evidence, subscribe to the channel now. The myth of the Patagonian giants, separating fact from fiction. The year is 1520. Ferdinand Magellan's fleet, battered and weary, rounds the tip of South America, braving treacherous straits that would later bear his name. It is here, on the shores of what would become known as Patagonia, that the first documented encounter with its indigenous people occurs. Antonio Pigafetta, the expedition's chronicler, recounts a meeting with men of immense stature, describing them as giants. He christens them Patagones, a name derived from a fictional dog-like creature in a Spanish novel, a testament to the sheer otherness they represented to the European eye. This initial contact, filtered through the lens of European perception, ignites a spark, a legend that would burn for centuries, fueling the myth of the Patagonian giants. But what did Pigafetta actually see? His descriptions, while evocative, are hardly scientific. He relies on comparisons to his own height, stating that these Patagones were significantly taller. Yet, height is relative. The average European of the 16th century was considerably shorter than today's average. Furthermore, the indigenous people of Patagonia, primarily the Tehuelche, wore guanaco hide boots that added considerable height. Imagine the effect of these elevated figures adorned in furs, emerging from the stark Patagonian landscape to meet sailors weakened by scurvy and months at sea. The stage was set for exaggeration, for the transformation of tall men into veritable giants in the European imagination. The accounts that followed Magellan's voyage only amplified the legend. Subsequent explorers, often relying on second-hand information or embellishing their own experiences, perpetuated the image of a race of towering humans. Sir Francis Drake's crew reported seeing men of extraordinary size. Later voyagers spoke of individuals reaching 10, even 12 feet tall. These claims, however, lacked any rigorous verification. No skeletal remains of such immense proportions were ever presented as proof. Instead, the myth thrived on hearsay, fueled by the allure of the unknown and the human tendency to sensationalize the unfamiliar. The truth, as it often does, lies somewhere between the fantastical tales and the dismissive skepticism. The Tehuelche were indeed a tall people, likely significantly taller than the average European of the time. Their physique, adapted to the harsh Patagonian environment, was robust and imposing. But they were not giants in the literal sense. The legend of the Patagonian giants, therefore, becomes a fascinating case study in how cultural biases, inaccurate observations, and the power of storytelling can transform reality into myth. The challenge now is to peel back the layers of exaggeration and discover the reality of these indigenous people, not as mythical giants, but as the resourceful and resilient inhabitants of a challenging land. Early European encounters and the exaggeration of size. The early encounters between Europeans and the Tehuelche were fraught with misinterpretations, fueled by the cultural chasm that separated them. European sailors, accustomed to the landscapes and peoples of their own continent, arrived in Patagonia with preconceived notions and a limited understanding of human diversity. The Tehuelche, with their distinctive physical characteristics and unfamiliar customs, were immediately perceived as other, a perception that quickly spiraled into exaggerated claims of gigantic stature. The very act of measurement became subjective, influenced by awe, fear, and the desire to impress back home with tales of the exotic. The exaggeration of size was further compounded by the Europeans' limited understanding of the Tehuelche culture. Their clothing, made from the thick hides of guanacos, added bulk and stature to their already imposing frames. Their nomadic lifestyle, which required them to be physically strong and resilient, contributed to their robust physique. These factors, combined with the Europeans' tendency to view the world through a lens of ethnocentrism, led to a distorted perception of their actual height. The Tehuelche were not simply tall, they were transformed into mythical giants, figures that loomed large in the European imagination. It's crucial to understand the context of the time. 16th and 17th century Europe was a world steeped in folklore and superstition. Tales of mythical creatures and faraway lands filled the popular imagination. The Patagonian giants, therefore, were readily incorporated into this existing framework of the fantastic. They became a symbol of the unknown, a testament to the boundless possibilities of the unexplored world. The lack of reliable scientific methods further contributed to the perpetuation of the myth. Explorers and chroniclers often relied on anecdotal evidence and hearsay, without the means to accurately measure or verify their claims. Ultimately, the exaggeration of the Tehuelche's size reflects more about the European worldview than it does about the actual physical characteristics of the indigenous people of Patagonia. It is a reminder of how cultural biases and preconceived notions can distort our perception of reality, transforming ordinary people into extraordinary figures in the realm of myth and legend. By critically examining these early encounters, we can begin to dismantle the myth of the Patagonian giants and uncover the truth about the Tehuelche, a people who were not giants, but were indeed uniquely adapted to their environment. Physical anthropology, examining the skeletal evidence. But beyond the historical accounts, the artistic depictions, and the undeniable power of myth, lies a more tangible scientific avenue for investigation: physical anthropology. Can the study of skeletal remains shed light on the true stature of the Tehuelche, and either validate or debunk the persistent claims of gigantic proportions? The search for skeletal evidence of the Patagonian giants has been a long and largely unfruitful endeavor. While numerous archaeological sites exist throughout Patagonia, yielding a wealth of information about the Tehuelche culture and way of life, the discovery of exceptionally tall human skeletons remains elusive. This absence of definitive skeletal proof is a significant challenge to the giant narrative. Skeletal remains provide direct, measurable data, untainted by the biases and exaggerations that often plague historical accounts. Anthropologists meticulously analyze bone length, density, and overall structure to estimate height with a reasonable degree of accuracy. The lack of skeletons exceeding the normal range for human height raises serious questions about the validity of the giant claims. However, the absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence. Several factors complicate the search for and interpretation of skeletal remains in Patagonia. The harsh climate and acidic soil conditions can accelerate decomposition, making the preservation of bones challenging. Furthermore, the nomadic lifestyle of the Tehuelche meant that burial sites were often temporary and scattered, making them difficult to locate. And of course, the vastness of the Patagonian landscape itself presents a logistical hurdle to comprehensive archaeological surveys. It's entirely possible that skeletal remains of taller-than-average individuals exist, but have simply not yet been discovered. Even if exceptionally tall skeletons were to be found, caution would be necessary in interpreting the data. Height variation within any population is normal, And the Tehuelche, like any other group, likely included individuals who were significantly taller than average. Distinguishing between a naturally tall individual and a true giant, as defined by the legends, would require careful analysis of bone structure and comparison to other populations. Moreover, the possibility of isolated cases of gigantism or other growth disorders cannot be ruled out. Physical anthropology offers a crucial lens through which to examine the myth of the Patagonian giants, providing a framework for evaluating the available evidence and separating fact from fiction. The Tehuelche people, culture and reality. Beyond the question of physical stature lies the far more compelling story of Tehuelche culture, a rich tapestry woven from adaptation, resilience, and a deep connection to the Patagonian landscape. To truly understand the Tehuelche, we must move beyond the myths and delve into their way of life, their social structures, and their spiritual beliefs. These were a nomadic people, their lives dictated by the movements of the guanaco, their primary source of food, clothing, and shelter. They were skilled hunters, masters of the bow and arrow, capable of bringing down these fleet-footed animals with remarkable precision. Their society was organized around kinship, with small, mobile groups moving across the vast plains in search of sustenance. These groups were highly adaptable, able to navigate the harsh climate and unpredictable resources of Patagonia. Their clothing, crafted from guanaco hides, provided protection from the wind and cold. Their dwellings, simple but effective shelters known as toldos, could be quickly erected and dismantled as they followed the herds. Every aspect of their lives was intricately linked to the environment, a testament to their deep understanding of the natural world. The spiritual beliefs of the Tehuelche were deeply rooted in animism, a belief that all things, animals, plants, rocks, and even the wind, possess a spirit. They revered the natural forces that shaped their lives, offering prayers and performing rituals to ensure the continued abundance of resources. Shamans, or spiritual leaders, played a crucial role in their society, acting as intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds, guiding their people through times of hardship and uncertainty. Their ceremonies often involved intricate body painting, using pigments derived from natural sources, transforming themselves into living works of art, connecting them to their ancestors and the spirits of the land. The arrival of Europeans in Patagonia brought profound changes to the Tehuelche way of life, introduced diseases, competition for resources, and the encroachment of settlements decimated their population and disrupted their traditional hunting grounds. Despite these challenges, the Tehuelche people demonstrated remarkable resilience, adapting to the changing circumstances and maintaining their cultural identity in the face of adversity. Today, descendants of the Tehuelche continue to live in Patagonia, striving to preserve their heritage and keep their traditions alive, a testament to the enduring spirit of a people who were far more than just giants. They were masters of survival in one of the world's most challenging environments, modern interpretations and the enduring legend. Modern interpretations of the Patagonian giants are as varied as the landscape itself. For some, the legend persists as a romantic notion, a testament to a lost world of larger-than-life figures. It fuels the imagination, inspiring art, literature, and even tourism, drawing visitors to Patagonia in search of echoes of this mythical past. This romanticized view often overlooks the complexities of the historical accounts and the scientific evidence, focusing instead on the allure of the unknown and the possibility of extraordinary beings. However, a more nuanced perspective acknowledges the cultural significance of the giant myth while grounding it in historical and anthropological realities. This interpretation sees the legend not as a literal account of gigantic humans, but as a reflection of European perceptions of the indigenous Tehuelche people. The Tehuelche, with their relatively tall stature and imposing physique compared to the average European of the time, may have been exaggerated in the eyes of early explorers, their physical presence amplified by the unfamiliar cultural context. The myth, therefore, becomes a lens through which to examine the dynamics of cultural encounters, the biases of early explorers, and the power of storytelling to shape perceptions. Furthermore, some scholars propose that the giant myth served a specific purpose in the European narrative of conquest and colonization. By portraying the indigenous population as giants, Europeans could justify their subjugation, framing them as a primitive and uncivilized race that needed to be brought under control. The myth, in this view, becomes a tool of power, used to legitimize the displacement and exploitation of the Tehuelche people. Understanding the historical context in which the giant myth emerged is crucial for deconstructing its underlying assumptions and uncovering the power dynamics at play. Ultimately, the enduring legend of the Patagonian giants serves as a reminder of the complexities of history, the power of perception, and the importance of critical analysis. While the existence of true giants remains unsubstantiated, the myth itself continues to resonate, prompting us to examine our own biases and assumptions when encountering different cultures. The story of the Tehuelche, stripped of its mythical embellishments, reveals a far more compelling narrative, a story of resilience, adaptation, and a deep connection to the land. A legacy that deserves to be remembered and celebrated long after the legends fade. So were the Tehuelche giants? Well, maybe not in the literal mythical sense, but they were undoubtedly taller, stronger, and more resilient than the average European. They were a people perfectly adapted to a harsh land, a culture rich in tradition and survival, and a testament to the incredible diversity of humankind. And perhaps, just perhaps, the real giants were their spirit, their tenacity, and their enduring legacy in the heart of Patagonia.